There is a major uproar on the internet right now as rumors grow into outrage. Was Kirk Frost poisoned? According to disturbing new allegations from a highly confidential medical source, Kirk's unusual illness wasn't natural at all. Claimed to have found signs of a rare, slow-acting poison in his system. And the twist is that they think it came from a close friend or relative rather than food or medicine. Fans are shocked, and many who have followed Kirk and Rasheeda for years are now analyzing old video, breaking down interviews, and looking for anything they could have overlooked because, if this is real, if someone genuinely wanted Kirk gone, the issue becomes who has the motivation, and even more unsettling, how long have they been plotting this? Emotions are raging, with some accusing former lovers, others focusing on competitors in the business world, and some even asking the unimaginable, was Rasheeda involved in this video? We're dissecting the entire time frame, the hospital shock fan reactions, and the terrifying information that could completely alter our perceptions of Kirk and his inner circle. Brace yourself, this isn't just drama. This is betrayal at its most sinister level. It all started with an eerie quiet that pervaded Kirk Frost's typically active online persona. The man who was constantly posting and showing up to events abruptly ended without a trace, with no Instagram updates or public appearances. Fans started inquiring almost immediately, where's Kirk? At first, they thought it was just another break. Stars steal the show, but something wasn't quite right. Rasheeda, who frequently shares too much with her fans, shared a single story with a picture of the dark hospital hallway and the words pray. One word sent shockwaves through the community, and a day later, a blurry photo of Kirk being hurried into a medical room with his eyes closed and his body limp began to circulate online. It was likely released by a hospital employee. Blogs caught it up instantly, nurses and fans were shocked. Rumors began to circulate in the comments, with some speculating that it was a stroke and others that it was a heart attack. However, nothing could have prepared anyone for what was about to happen when a blogger who was notorious for sharing inside information about celebrities dropped the doctors found signs of a dangerous substance in Kirk's blood. According to an unidentified nurse who broke the news that Kirk had not simply fallen but had been poisoned. The toxin wasn't anything you get in a normal overdose, but rather something slow, uncommon, and deliberate. Indicated intentional poisoning, not something you would unintentionally consume, but something that was gradually added in little doses. The blog said that internal testing verified it wasn't food poisoning or a recreational drug, and that doctors were astounded by the levels in his system. It was ethylene glycol, a highly precise chemical that is commonly used in antifreeze. It is odorless, lethal, and has a sweet taste that is readily overlooked in food or drink. The social repercussions were terrible. Fans were devastated and furious, and hashtags like #PrayFor, #KirkFrostPoison, and #HashWatadis began trending on Twitter as people demanded answers. Surprisingly, Rasheeda's silence was the loudest. After the photo was leaked, she didn't post for 2 days in a row before finally saying, "This is a difficult time, please give us privacy." The comment section below that post turned into a battlefield, with some fans offering support, others demanding the truth, and many outright accusing her. People weren't very nice. In Kirk's cousin Malik's late-night posting and deletion of a mysterious Facebook status statement stoked suspicions. The comment read, "Why so quiet? You always post everything, now your man is dying and you're just asking for privacy sounds off." You try to warn someone that not everyone who smiles in their face is a friend, but sometimes the poison comes with a kiss. Malik wrote in the post. Before he could remove the post, fans pre-shot it, and within minutes it was being discussed on social media, with individuals asking questions, such, was Malik blaming others or was the family already suspicious? When another aspect of the mystery was revealed, the drama grew more intense. Kirk was like a brother we built so much together, and yet he was going through some stuff, but never in a million years did I think, Tony, Kirk's longtime business partner, said in an unexpected Instagram live, clearly moved. This is how someone would attempt to remove him. He hesitated, then said something eerie. And the most bizarre part is that he told me a week earlier that he felt like someone was observing him. He claimed to have been ill for weeks and believed that perhaps someone fans were shocked to hear that Kirk had suspected something was amiss, but no one paid attention. What was even more unsettling was that Kirk had allegedly told a friend that he intended to amend his will, and someone close to the family leaked that Kirk had recently mentioned removing someone from his life. Originally, the leak didn't name names, but as rumors spread, fans started piecing together a risky puzzle to figure out who had the motivation and who stood to gain from Kirk's demise. As they delved more, everyone's attention fell to Rasheeda, the one person who hadn't said much. they discovered something strange about their recent past. For the past 2 months, Kirk and Rasheeda had been less frequently seen together. No date evenings, no joint business presentations, nothing. Instead of promoting her solo endeavors. Then came the voice message. A lady named Tasha, claiming to be Rasheeda's former assistant, sent the message to a well-known gossip page in the internet. Was this a coincidence, or was she preparing for a future without Kirk? Note, she stated, I was with them for more than a year, and there were constant arguments. Kirk was considering leaving everything, telling me that he wanted to move to Miami and be out of the spotlight. But Rasheeda was against it, saying that he couldn't just leave when they had brand deals lined up. She once yelled that she would be destroyed if he left. When questioned if she believed Rasheeda was involved in the poisoning, Tasha remained silent, but her hesitancy was evident shortly after an anonymous former employee at one of their companies came forward. According to the statement, every time he ate at home, he felt sick afterward. He joked that maybe his wife was trying to kill him. Kirk had been complaining of feeling strange for weeks before to his collapse. Though stated in the most just way, it now has a sinister connotation, and the internet has taken over. Blogs have made headlines about it, and podcasts have thoroughly dissected the timeline. Fans are no longer really worried. They are certain that something is amiss. One of Kirk's closest childhood friends finally broke down in tears in a heartfelt live video. The inference was obvious, and the comment sections erupted once more when he claimed that Kirk was too intelligent to fall for something arbitrary if he was poisoned. It came from someone who was familiar with his daily routine and had access to him. Named Rasheeda, but as the pressure increased, a hospital source revealed that Kirk had momentarily regained consciousness. It wasn't a complete recovery, but he had opened his eyes and was able to speak a few words. His first "who did this?" was said, and he then passed out once more. The room apparently fell silent. The family reportedly stood in awe and medical personnel hurried in, but those 3 words set off a chain reaction that resembled the biggest shock was still to come. If Kirk really thought he had been attacked, he would have inquired who did it. This will have shown that it wasn't simply paranoia. It was genuine fans who wanted justice, answers, and someone held responsible. Reverberated like a curse through the hospital hallways, and those around Kirk's bedside froze, unable to comprehend what had just been said. According to one witness, Rasheeda started crying right once. After being comatose for almost 4 days, Kirk spoke, and the first thing on his thoughts wasn't agony or uncertainty, but betrayal, the type that only comes from fear. Others felt it looked like remorse, but whatever the truth was, the timing of those words couldn't have been more combustible. Kirk's room was apparently sealed down by hospital staff after he was injured by someone nearby, and only family members were permitted to visit after that. According to sources, Rasheeda was the first person permitted to return. Wasn't what she had anticipated. According to a nurse who asked not to be named, Kirk became very upset when Rasheeda entered the room. He tried to sit up, tugging at cables, and his heart rate spiked. The nurse claimed to have heard him say something like, "They're out." Rasheeda was swiftly escorted out, her face pale and trembling, even if the words were slurred. The story didn't remain inside the hospital walls for long though, because someone leaked the nurse's report, and fans weren't just speculating, they were persuaded that Rasheeda was involved. The story took a sinister turn as videos appeared on TikTok and YouTube, each one analyzing every word, movement, and moment before Kirk was admitted to the hospital. The creators retrieved old love and hip-hop footage to highlight instances in which Rasheeda appeared aloof or bitter. A video that Kirk had accused her of harboring resentment for too long reappeared, and fans were now interpreting it as a murder mystery. Rasheeda attempted to repair the damage by sharing a video of herself sitting in a candlelit room with her eyes swollen and her voice shaking. "You guys have no idea," she said. "Kirk is my husband, and I love him and would never do anything to hurt him." But the comments weren't nice. They called it crocodile tears and said the video appeared to be staged and too rehearsed. One comment went viral, saying she was crying like she was trying to win an Oscar, while others noted that there was no mention of the poisoning, there was no reference to the rumors, only a general request for calm. But when the police intervened, things got even worse. According to local reports, doctors were legally obligated to report the poisoning as soon as the test results showed foul play, which meant detectives were now formally while Kirk's case was being investigated. News swiftly circulated that officials had started interviewing family members. Kirk's oldest son was the first to be spotted entering the station, where he reportedly stayed more than 2 hours. When he'd emerged, he evaded Kirk, reportedly told a family friend, who wished to remain anonymous, that weeks prior to the incident, he had been planning to meet with a lawyer to revise his will. In addition, Kirk reportedly told this friend, "If anything happens to me, don't trust the people." This was the biggest leak yet. Closest to me. Within minutes of the content going viral, Rasheeda ceased posting altogether after podcasts and news sources took it up. As fans were pointing fingers, a name that hadn't been brought up before, Kirk's niece Tamika, subtly entered the discussion. She had always been close to him and frequently handled the backstage operations of his companies, but some people began seeing connections that didn't quite make up. When hospital staff ordered Tamika to leave, she allegedly grew hostile, shouting, "He needs to tell me where he hid the damn papers," according to a nurse. Tamika had been observed arriving at the hospital late at night, well after visiting hours. Fans questioned whether Kirk's near-death experience was actually related to internal conflicts over his estate, his music repertoire, real estate properties, and commercial ventures when security was summoned and she was taken. As the investigation progressed, Kirk remained in and out of consciousness, reportedly having moments of clarity but not feeling well. It was no small matter that rumors surfaced that several people had been excluded from future deals due to Kirk's recent disagreements with them, and the timing of everything began to look too convenient and strategic. Enough to make a complete statement, but while they awaited his testimony, the police were collecting evidence. One important lead was a delivery receipt discovered in the Frost household's kitchen trash. It revealed an online order for a compound cleaning solution that contained the same chemical that was discovered in Kirk's bloodstream. Had been signed for by a person with access to the house, but the name was smudged and the package arrived weeks before Kirk passed away. When that information was made public, fans went into full detective mode, examining the kitchen's countertops, looking through old videos for cleaning supplies that might have been in the background. Turned into a virtual crime scene, and once more, the common thread running through all of this pandemonium was Rasheeda. Whether fair or not, the people had determined that she was guilty until proven innocent, but Rasheeda wasn't the only one. Stakes move in silence. You think you know your own blood, and then they show you who they really are. Diane, Kirk's brothers, said in a mysterious video he posted from outside the hospital while under investigation. He gave no names or explanations, but fans took it and started making wild theories. The mystery had too many components, and each new post only fueled the flames. Some assumed it was about Rasheeda, while others speculated that DM might be referring to Tamika or perhaps Kirk's business colleague Tony. Then, an anonymous tip reached the local television station, saying to have security footage from the Frost residence come forward. The footage, which had not yet been made public, reportedly showed Kirk and someone arguing in his kitchen the night before he passed out. The informant claimed that Kirk yelled, "You've been putting things in my food. You always think someone is out to get you. Maybe you're just paranoid," the other individual replied. Kirk was discovered asleep in bed the following morning, according to the video, was genuine and could expose the entire case, but Kirk's health was still in jeopardy. Doctors confirmed that although he was stable, his kidneys and liver had suffered severe damage, and that even if he survived, he might experience long-term effects. The family was asked to prepare for tough choices, and with emotions running high, trust shattered, and secrets coming to light, Kirk's medical team made it apparent that this was a purposeful poisoning and that there was little time to waste in identifying the culprit. The issue on everyone's mind was no longer just who, as Kirk's condition worsened. The pressure around his family reached a boiling point, the leaks, the rumors, and if Kirk's inner circle was involved, then no one was safe from suspicion, consequences, or the truth that was about to be revealed. This was how deep the betrayal went. Allegations, everything was falling apart. The Frost family, which had once been unified in front of the cameras, was now split by the most vicious of forces. They didn't know who they could trust, and more significantly, Kirk didn't know who he could trust if he ever recovered enough strength to identify the offender. Rasheeda, still in shock over the viral video, was desperate for answers. She had been hospitalized for days, hoping for any improvement, but every day felt like a new setback to her emotional stability, and her fans weren't stopping. Every time she went out or posted on social media, comments poured in, accusing her of being involved in Kirk's poisoning. But not only the fans started to distance themselves, even Kirk's circle members who had previously been friendly with her became wary and couldn't look her in the eye without suspicion hovering over them. In the middle of all of this, another bombshell dropped a police report. According to an anonymous source, Kirk's blood samples had undergone a second round of testing, and this time the results were much more alarming. In addition to the poison that was first found, the test found indications of a medication that is commonly employed in high-level assassinations, seen in espionage cases. How did well-known person Kirk end up consuming such a rare and harmful substance? This revelation sent shockwaves through the media, and reporters and experts couldn't stop discussing it, wondering who would have access to such substances and why Kirk would be singled out in this manner. The media frenzy only made matters worse for Rasheeda, who was now accused of both covering it up and being involved in the poisoning. Every time she attempted to speak out, she was met with harsh criticism. Was it a professional job someone hired to take him down, or was it someone in his inner circle using their access to harm him for personal gain? Rebuttals: the public's opinion was already formed, and the strain was so great that she isolated herself from the outside world and only allowed close family members to visit her during this trying time. Meanwhile, the rumors spread, and some fans started to wonder if Kirk's own family had been part of a complex plot to seize control of his fortune. Tamika, Kirk's niece, was seen on multiple leaked videos, including one that showed her having a heated discussion with Kirk just days prior to the event. The video was shaky, but the worst part was when Kirk could be seen saying, "Tamika, you're always there when things go wrong. What's really going on with you?" was said by someone who was obviously angry. Tom's voice was calm in response, although fans weren't convinced though, and thought the exchange was cool. Shortly after, an unexpected event further upended the situation. Tama's social media accounts went silent. "Firm nothing is going on, stop being paranoid," she added. Her complete disappearance, no posts, stories, or updates for days, only served to feed the escalating conspiracy theories that followers conjectured she was either hiding or, worse, had been silenced. The timing was too coincidental. The media quickly noticed this as well. The fact that Tama had essentially disappeared raised questions about whether she had fled, whether she had been involved in Kirk's poisoning, and if so, why she was suddenly keeping quiet. As the public's attention was focused on Tama, another development emerged: that in a startling allegation, a former Kirk's employee who collaborated closely with him on a number of business endeavors informed reporters that Kirk had been discussing a significant betrayal for weeks prior to the poisoning because he had a sense. "He told me it wasn't about money, it was about power. He was afraid of losing control over his life, his career, and everything he had worked for," the former employee disclosed, revealing that someone close to him was going to harm him. By this time, police detectives had started piecing together a troubling timeline of Kirk's health issues, and this statement sparked a wave of conjecture about who was attempting to take control of his life. Tamika, Rasheeda dying, or someone else entirely. Rapidly declining following a particularly intense dispute with a family member a few days prior to his illness. The argument, which occurred during a family get-together, was allegedly about Kirk's business transactions. According to people familiar with the matter, Kirk was preparing to sever ties with it. As police continued their investigation, Kirk began to make arrangements to protect himself both financially and emotionally. The distance between him and some family members and the number of people he had formerly trusted had been widening for months, and it appeared that he had now reached a breaking point, shifted their attention to those who had known Kirk the best in his last days. Dying, Kirk's brother, was among the first suspects to be questioned, and although he had seemed encouraging in public, there were rumors of his own financial difficulties. Had Dying, like others, been desperate for control over Kirk's, he was known to have participated in some of Kirk's business dealings, but there were no conclusive records demonstrating the full scope of his involvement. The police started looking into his finances in an attempt to find any possible reason, while the Frost family was being split up, with Kirk's mother having kept quiet throughout the entire ordeal. But in a rare interview, she finally opened up about how shocked she was by what had happened to her son. "Kirk is a good man," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't know who could do something like this to him. He loved his family. He would never hurt anybody." However, when more information became available, viewers began to question whether Kirk's own mother had been coerced into betraying him. Even her words were insufficient to quell the mounting skepticism. Then came the shocking revelation that nobody had anticipated. A phone call from an unidentified number was released to the media, during which Kirk could be heard, almost able to talk, stating, "I know who did this, but I can't say it yet." Fans and media outlets were rushing to decipher Kirk's last comments before the tape died. Did Kirk know who was responsible for the poisoning? Had he previously figured it out? If so, why hadn't he named names? Was he protecting someone? Or was he just too weak to do so? The rumors were getting more and more intense every day. The family was under increasing pressure. Suspicions were becoming accusations, and the trust that had once underpinned their relationships was eroding. There was no way for anyone to permanently conceal the truth. There were still questions about who had poisoned Kirk, why, and who stood to benefit from his demise. As the inquiry progressed, more details came to light, but one thing was certain. Everyone had something to conceal as Kirk's health continued to worsen and the public's anxiety over him reached a fever pitch. Couldn't stand the rumors and the strain on his family, which only grew more intense. Every action they took was watched closely, and every word they said was twisted into something darker. The police investigation was getting closer to the truth, but nobody could predict what they would find next, and Kirk was barely hanging on. Crossfire of rumors, betrayals, and an unbreakable web of lies, and just when the family felt they had reached their lowest point, a startling new discovery rocked them to their very core. A new witness came forward and claimed to have seen something important the night Kirk was poisoned. In the days preceding Kirk's collapse, Tamika's acquaintance disclosed a shocking revelation that no one had anticipated. She had been acting strangely and was constantly rushing, as if she had something to conceal. The witness stated, "I saw her leave Kurt's residence late at night, and in addition to being with a man I had never seen before, she was obviously anxious about something." This evidence was sent shockwaves through the investigation, bringing up even more questions about Tamika's involvement. Was she the one who poisoned Kirk, or was she merely a pawn in a larger plot? The witness's statement was sufficient to force investigators to re-examine Tamika's whereabouts that evening. The more investigators looked into the man Tamika had been spotted with, the more they discovered that she had been concealing something. A thorough examination of her social media accounts showed a string of mysterious posts in the weeks preceding Kirk's poisoning. "Sometimes it's better to keep your enemies close," she wrote in one of Kirk's posts, which appeared to allude to a falling out within the family. Fans and detectives alike were left wondering, was Tamika attempting to convey a message to them? As if things weren't enough difficult, there was another startling revelation. Diane, Kirk's brother, was forced. Police found that Diane had made multiple sizable withdrawals from Kirk's personal accounts in the weeks prior to Kirk's fall. The timing was extremely suspicious, and it immediately raised red flags that Diane was involved in a number of unusual transactions that brought him into the spotlight. Investigators were looking into Diane's finances more thoroughly than anyone had anticipated, and the picture that emerged was more complicated than anyone had anticipated. However, Diane's lawyer swiftly denied any wrongdoing Diane had committed. Kirk's poisoning had he been embezzling money from his brother, and now saw the opportunity to eliminate him. Been Kirk's faithful brother for years, the attorney said during a news conference that there is no proof at all that he was involved in Kirk's tragic illness. These stories are unfounded and unfounded, but the public wasn't persuaded. With the probe focusing on Kirk's inner circle, Rasheeda discovered that fans and media outlets started to doubt Diane's intentions. Some even accused him of attempting to use his brother's issue to gain control of Kirk's resources and power. She had already been held accountable for Kirk's illness, and the weight of the accusations was getting to her. The media's obsession with her involvement only grew, and every time she left the house, cameras were there to record her every move, portraying her as the villain in a perverse way. In the midst of all the turmoil, Rasheeda's emotions were running high as she was accused of poisoning her husband and participating in a broader plot to take over his life. It seemed like the world had turned against her, with her family, friends, and even her own admirers starting to doubt her. She needed to correct the record and give her side of the story because she was angry, hurt, and afraid all at once, but nothing she did seemed to halt the tidal wave of negativity that enveloped her. It looked like her only choice was to fight back. Rasheeda eventually talked about the accusations and the suffering she had been going through in an emotional interview with a well-known TV presenter. "I never wanted this to happen," she said, her voice shaking. "I love Kirk with all my heart, and I would never hurt him. No one is more devastated, more important than me at the moment, but it's not just about me. It's about our family and our future. We must remain together and discover the truth." Although her statements were honest and open, they didn't have the desired effect on her. Instead, fans and the media had portrayed her as guilty, and no amount of pleading would change that. As Rasheeda battled to clear her name, Kirk's health started to drastically deteriorate after weeks of silence from doctors, and both critics and others remained doubtful. Some even accused her of exploiting Kirk's near-death experience to win sympathy. He was still unable to move or speak on his own, but the fact that he was alive at all was a miracle. The doctors were cautiously hopeful, but they cautioned that Kirk's road to recovery would not be easy, would be lengthy and unpredictable, and Kirk was exposed to several rounds of interrogation. Even though he was weak, the detectives were committed to obtaining the information they required to understand who poisoned Kirk. And they wouldn't give up until they learned in one of the few interviews Kirk was able to give that he looked tired but clear. "I know who I can't say it yet, but he did this," in a barely audible whisper. The room shook as Kirk said that he knew who had attacked him, but he was unable to identify him. Was someone he was shielding, or was he too afraid to identify? Fans, the media, and the drama surrounding Kirk's poisoning left his family in anticipation, listening to every word he spoke. Theories concerning Kirk's poisoning persisted, and it appeared that the truth was still just out of grasp. Some thought the attack was motivated by Kirk's financial circumstances, while others assumed as the investigation went on, it became clear that it was something more personal, possibly a betrayal from someone he had trusted. It became evident that the issue was much more complex than anyone had anticipated, with the drama, deceit, and secrets. The most important question was still who was responsible for Kirk's poisoning, even though everything was leading to something disastrous. And when, as Kirk's road to rehabilitation progressed, will the truth finally surface? The family's anxiety only seemed to increase, and Kirk Frost's poisoning investigations were far from over. From the beginning, and the shocking charges made against Tamika, Kirk's sister-in-law, had caused chaos for the whole family. But just when everyone believed they had reached a breaking point, another in a startling turn of events, Kirk, who was still hardly aware, managed to whisper. Kirk said, his voice barely audible. It's something that would send the whole family into a tailspin again. It was someone else, not Tamika. The crowd fell silent, and what he said wasn't merely a confession, but a radical change in the course of the inquiry. For weeks, Tamika had been Kirk's statement after being suspected of poisoning her own brother-in-law changed the course of the case. Who was he now accusing? And what did he mean when he said that the doctor's hurried to breathing became difficult for him as he tried to comprehend what Kirk was trying to communicate? Was this a flash of insight when his body grew weak and his eyes glazed with bewilderment? Or was Kirk just hallucinating from the trauma? Everyone in the room was frantically trying to find answers, but Tamika's face turned pale as she listened from the corner of the room as the mystery grew deeper by the second. Was she indeed framed, or was this her last attempt to hide her identity? Rasheeda, who had been fighting to protect her family and maintain their stability, was forced to pick up the pieces once more. Her spouse was experiencing emotional distress, and she had been coping with the strain of Kirk's illness, media craze, and now that she knew this new information, she went to the doctors asking for any glimmer of hope. What's this? Her voice broke with passion as she asked. Who is Kirk referring to, and is this actually taking place? The physicians could only reassure them that Kirk's state was still shaky, so it was difficult to determine if what he said was accurate or merely the product of his weakened state. But the harm was already done because Kirk's recent speech was reported by the media, and soon Kirk's unexpected confession to his family was the talk of the town, with headlines blaring. Fans are astonished by the new twist in who poisoned Kirk Frost, while Tamika had to defend herself once more. But in a tearful interview, the strain was worse than ever. Denied any role in Kirk's poisoning with tears in their eyes, saying, "I'm devastated by Kirk's poisoning. I never wanted to hurt him. Despite everything that has transpired, I vowed to never take Kirk's. There are charges that I simply cannot explain." Her anguish was evident, and her tears were genuine, but her remarks didn't appear to persuade everyone, and opinions among the public were divided. After Kirk's surprising declaration, some people started to trust him, but others remained faithful to Tama's calling. She was the victim of a miscommunication, but what about the other members of the family? Rasheeda was inconsolable since they were beginning to suspect that there was more going on. She had already been coping with enough allegations of her role in Kirk's deterioration from the media and her admirers. Now with Kirk's most recent, Rasheeda said, "I know my family," adding fuel to the fire that made her more determined than ever to discover the truth. With a local news station in a tearful interview, "Because I know Kirk Keywood, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on, but I never accused someone without cause." As the police began looking into Kirk's business operations as the investigation progressed and additional surprises were discovered in the establishment. Kirk had always been an accomplished businessman, but he was searching for any hints that would indicate who might have poisoned him. He had many adversaries, like many in the entertainment business, and the more they learned, the more they understood how the shock occurred as it appeared that Kirk's family was not the only one with secrets and that many others had reasons to hurt them. Something nobody anticipated when Kirk's financial investigators performed a moral check. Discovered a string of odd transactions in which Kirk had been sending substantial quantities of money to a newly identified. The money was moved into account 1, which was unrelated to any family members or business partners. The weeks before Kirk became ill, and the sums were unusually high. The media jumped on this right away, asking who was responsible for these transactions and whether they were related to the poisoning. The headlines cried out, "New development. Did Kirk have a secret lover behind these mysterious payments?" Some wondered if Kirk had been blackmailed, while others conjectured that he had been in a covert romance. Could these enigmatic payments be a hint that he poisoned Tamika? Found herself in the public eye once more despite having no direct link to the cash she rejected. Any participation? But the public was starting to wonder if she had been concealing something. That if Tamika had been aware of the payments and had concealed them for personal gain, she had been shielding someone else. The family was split apart more and more as the inquiries mounted, and Rasheeda was in a state of complete incredulity. She had worked so hard to maintain the family's unity, but now it felt Kirk was still struggling for his life, and it seemed like everything was falling apart. With the media analyzing every aspect, but she became defensive when people asked her about the most recent events in their lives, saying, "I'm just trying." In a sad address to the media, she stated, "I don't have all the answers, but I'm not giving up on Kirk." Up on him as the inquiry progressed and the family started to dissect every new Kirk's poisoning was not the only piece of evidence that seemed to point to a broader plot. It was a family drama of epic proportions, including money secrets and more than just one person's treachery. Lies, and nobody knew who they could turn to as Kirk fought for his life. Soon, it became evident that the poisoner's truth was anything but straightforward. Had not yet been located, but everyone in Kirk's immediate vicinity was feeling the effects of his poisoning. No one knew who was responsible for the irreparable harm to their relationships and the disintegration of their family. The struggle inside the family was only just beginning, but Kirk's struggle for survival was still going on. It would take time to determine who would win this convoluted tale. You have now witnessed the startling turns, dramatic collapses, and heartbreaking charges involving Kirk. Tamika's passionate denials and Kirk's fate, as well as Frost's enigmatic poisoning. But eerie remarks that rocked the whole family. This tale has taken a turn that nobody anticipated, and the reality, however, is still hidden beneath layers of deceit, deception, and grief. But what do you believe actually transpired was Kirk's epiphany? Do you think Tamika is innocent? A true breakthrough, or perhaps a hallucination brought on by this frail state? Or is she concealing something more sinister? And might those odd money transactions suggest a covered scheme? If someone else is tugging the strings from the shadows, please share your ideas in the comments section. Now tell us what you think the true narrative behind this twisted tale is, and who do you think wanted Kirk to leave? And while your thoughts count, and you could even notice the little thing that everyone, if you were taken aback by the story's unexpected turns, please hit the like button so we can bring you even more incredible tales like this one. And remember to subscribe and enable alerts, since this you won't want to miss a single update we're following, because the story isn't finished yet and more mysteries are set to be revealed. Every lead, interview, and hint until the whole truth is revealed, so stay attentive, stay inquisitive, and keep observing, because nothing is ever what it seems in the world of celebrity, family, and treachery. It appears